English Story Story 1 The Fairy and the Shadow. A long, long time ago, before people and their cities filled the earth, even before many things even had a name, there was a mysterious place that was guarded by the fairy of the lake. Fair and generous, each of her followers were ever willing to serve her. There was a time in which some evil begins threatened the lake and its surrounding forests, and the fairy's followers joined her on a dangerous journey across rivers, swamps, and deserts in search of the crystal stone, their only hope of being saved. The fairy warned them of the dangers and difficulties that lay ahead, of how hard it would be to endure the whole journey, but none of her followers were afraid. They all promised to accompany her to whenever it was needed, and that someday the fairy and her 50 most loyal followers set out on their journey. As it turned out, the voyage was even harder and more terrible than the fairy had imagined, and warned them about they were met by terrifying beasts. They had to march day and night, lost in deserts, hungry and thirsty. Faced by such adversity, many followers lost heart and abandoned the quest. Finally, only one remained, and its name was Shadow. Shadow was by no means the bravest. He was not the best fighter, nor was the most quick-witted or the most fun. However, what he did do was stay loyal to the fairy, right to the very end. Whenever the fairy asked Shadow why he had not done as the others and simply abandoned her, Shadow would always say, "I told you I would follow you in spite of all difficulties. And that is what I am doing. I'm not going to turn my back on you just because the journey has been hard." Thanks to her loyal Shadow, the fairy finally managed to find the crystal stone. Unfortunately, there was a monster guarding the stone, and this monster was not about to give up the stone easily. At this, Shadow, in a final act of loyalty, offered himself in exchange for the stone. The monster accepted, and so Shadow spent the rest of his days in the monster's service. The powerful magic of Crystal Stone means that the fairy could return to lake and make the evil beings disappear. But every night she would cry at the absence of her loyal Shadow, because from Shadow's act of self-sacrifice had arisen a love stronger than any other. And in memory of Shadow, and to show everyone the value of loyalty and commitment, the fairy presented every being on earth with its own shadow during the day. But when nighttime comes, all these shadows travel to the lake to spend time with the sad fairy and to try to console her for her loss. Story 2 The Unfriendly River. Once upon a time, there was a river. This river was rather unfriendly and lonesome. The river could not remember how long ago he had decided that he no longer wanted to put up with anything or anyone. He lived alone, refusing to share his water with any fish, plants, or animal. One day, a little girl with a goldfish bowl came to the bank of this river. In the bowl lived Scamp, her favorite little fish. The girl was about to move to another country, and she wouldn't be able to take Scamp with her. So she had decided to give Scamp his freedom. When Scamp fell into the river, he immediately felt the river's loneliness. Scamp tried talking to the river, but the river told Scamp to go away. Now, Scamp was a very happy little fish, and he wasn't going to give up so easily. He asked and asked, swam and swam, and finally he started jumping in and out of the water. The river, feeling all the jumping and splashing, started to laugh. It tickled. After a while, this put the river in such a good mood that he started talking to Scamp. Almost without knowing it, by the end of that day, Scamp and the river had become very good friends. The river spent that night thinking about how much fun it was to have friends, and how much he had missed by not having them. He asked himself why he had never had them, but he couldn't remember. The next morning, Scamp walked the river with a few playful splashes. And that was when the river remembered why he had decided to be such an unfriendly river. He remembered that he was very ticklish, and that he wouldn't have been able to stand it. Now he remembered perfectly how he had told everyone to scoot, that he wasn't going to put up with all that tickling. But remembering how sad and lonely he had felt for so many years, the river realized that although it may sometimes be a bit inconvenient or uncomfortable, it was always better to have friends and try to be happy.